There is a war being fought inside you right now, not a metaphorical war, not a poetic device designed to get your attention, a real, neurological, spiritually consequential war between the version of you that is capable of the extraordinary and the version of you that cannot make it through 90 minutes without surrendering your attention to something that does not matter. And the extraordinary version is losing, not because it is weaker, because it is being outgunned, because the forces of distraction arrayed against the focused human mind in this era are not accidental, they are engineered. Designed by the most sophisticated behavioral scientists on Earth, funded by billions of dollars, refined by billions of data points, optimized with ruthless precision to exploit every vulnerability in the human attention system and convert your most irreplaceable resource into someone else's profit. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own, more valuable than your money, more valuable than your time, because money can be earned again, and time, though it cannot be recovered, at least moves at a fixed rate. But attention, genuine, focused, sustained, creative attention, is the only force in the known universe capable of turning thought into reality. And they are stealing it from you, minute by minute, notification by notification, scroll by scroll, in the accumulated theft of 1,000 micro-surrenders every single day. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Think and grow rich in an era without smartphones, without social media, without the infinite scroll and the algorithmic feed and the dopamine loop engineered to make the next piece of content always feel more urgent than the work sitting in front of you." And even then, he identified distraction as one of the primary destroyers of human potential. He called it the dissipation of mental energy, the scattering of the focused thought that is the only real tool of creation into 1,000 directions that produce nothing but the exhausting illusion of activity. Imagine what he would say today. Imagine Hill standing in the middle of the average modern life and watching a human being of extraordinary capability spend 4 hours a day feeding an algorithm that has no interest in their destiny and will never return a single minute of what it took. He would not be gentle about it. And neither will I, because what is being stolen from you is not just time. What is being stolen from you is the life you were supposed to build. With the focused hours you are instead spending on everything that will not matter when you are standing at the end of your days, taking the inventory that everyone eventually takes. You feel this, don't you? That specific shame that comes not from failure, but from distraction. The shame of ending a day knowing you were busy every single minute, and yet built nothing, moved nothing forward, created nothing that wasn't there when you woke up. The shame of a mind that is capable of construction, spending its hours in consumption. That shame is not weakness. That shame is intelligence. It is your highest self sending a signal through the only channel the distracted mind still has access to, the channel of felt wrongness, the sense that this is not what you were made for. This scrolling, this consuming, this perpetual low-grade engagement with the urgent and the trivial at the expense of the important and the sacred. You were not made for this. Your brain, that 3-pound universe of electrochemical magnificence, was not designed to process 2,000 pieces of information before noon and produce nothing of consequence before midnight. It was designed to focus, to go deep, to hold a single, burning, emotionally charged intention in the foreground of consciousness long enough for the subconscious to engage its full creative power and begin drawing from the infinite field of possibility the specific ideas, connections, and insights required to bring that intention into physical reality. That is what the focused mind does. That is what Hill documented in every single one of the extraordinary achievers he studied. Not one of them built their legacy by dividing their attention. Not one of them created the extraordinary by being perpetually available to the ordinary. Every single one of them had developed, through deliberate practice and iron discipline, the capacity to concentrate their mental energy on a single definite purpose, with an intensity that most people never experience even once in their entire lives. Hill called this the master key: concentration. The ability to hold the mind on one thing long enough, deeply enough, and with enough emotional charge for the subconscious to receive it as a command rather than a passing thought. And he said, without qualification, that every person who had ever achieved anything of lasting significance had mastered this capacity. Everyone, without exception, which means that everything you want, everything you have declared as your definite purpose, everything you have been working toward and praying for and trying to build, is on the other side of this one capacity. Not the other side of more information, not the other side of better strategy or superior talent or favorable circumstances. The other side of the ability to focus your mind with ruthless, sustained, disciplined intensity on what matters most, for long enough that the subconscious can do what only the subconscious can do. And right now, that capacity is being systematically dismantled. Every time you reach for the phone, before you reach for the work, you are weakening the neural pathway of focus and strengthening the neural pathway of avoidance. Every time you allow a notification to fracture your concentration, you are training your brain that interruption is normal and depth is optional. Every time you choose the stimulation of consumption over the discomfort of creation, you are casting a vote for the version of yourself that will arrive at the end of their life with a head full of other people's content and a heart full of their own unexpressed potential. You are not lazy, you are hijacked. And the first step toward reclaiming what has been taken is understanding with absolute clarity what focus actually is. Why the distracted mind cannot produce the extraordinary life, and what it will cost you every single day that you allow the war inside you to continue without choosing a side. Because neutrality in this war is not possible. Every day you do not train your brain to be ruthless with distraction. Distraction trains your brain to be ruthless with your potential. One of you is getting stronger every single day. Right now it is the wrong one. That changes today. Here is the law that governs everything Hill discovered about the focused mind. Receive it not as advice, receive it as physics. The mind cannot serve two masters simultaneously, not effectively, not at the level required to produce the extraordinary. It can switch between masters with impressive speed, creating the convincing illusion of multitasking, creating the feeling of productive engagement with multiple things at once. But that switching has a cost, a neurological tax paid in the currency of depth. Every time the mind shifts its focus from one thing to another, it does not simply pick up where it left off. It pays an attention residue, a cognitive echo of the previous task that lingers in the background and degrades the quality of engagement with the new one. Which means the fragmented mind is never fully present anywhere. It is always partially somewhere else, always carrying the ghost of the last thing it was doing into the next thing it is trying to do. And a mind that is never fully present is a mind that never goes deep enough to produce the work that only depth can produce. Hill observed this in the negative space of his research. In the lives of people who should have achieved extraordinary things and didn't, people with superior intelligence, people with genuine desire and real ambition and more than enough talent to justify the life they claim to want. And what he found beneath the surface explanations of bad luck and poor timing and missing resources was almost always the same thing: a scattered mind. A mind that had never been trained to hold its power in one place long enough for that power to do what power does when it is concentrated. He used the analogy of sunlight and a magnifying glass. Sunlight spread across a field is warmth, pleasant, diffuse, capable of sustaining life at a basic level, but incapable of igniting anything. That same sunlight focused through a lens becomes fire. Not more sunlight, the same sunlight, concentrated, directed, held in one place with enough intensity that the nature of what it touches is permanently changed. Your mental energy is the sunlight, focus is the lens, and the extraordinary life you are trying to build is the thing waiting to catch fire. But it cannot catch fire from a mind spread across 100 inputs. It can only catch fire from a mind concentrated with the ruthless, deliberate, disciplined intensity of someone who understands that their attention is not a leisure resource to be spent on whatever is most immediately stimulating. It is a sacred creative force to be invested with the same strategic precision as capital. Hill documented what happened when the masters concentrated their mental energy on a single definite purpose. Edison in his laboratory, sometimes for days without sleep, his entire consciousness collapsed into the problem in front of him, unavailable to anything outside the circumference of that singular focus. Carnegie, organizing his entire mental life around the single vision of the steel empire, every conversation, every relationship, every decision, evaluated through the lens of whether it served or detracted from that central purpose. Ford, holding the vision of the automobile made accessible to every working man with such sustained, concentrated clarity that when his engineers told him the engine he was demanding was impossible, he simply refused to redirect his attention to their impossibility and kept it fixed on his vision until they found the solution. These were not men of superior intelligence. Hill was explicit about this. They were men of superior concentration, men who had developed the capacity to direct their mental energy with such precision and such persistence that the problems in front of them had no choice but to eventually yield. Because a focused mind aimed at a specific problem long enough is not searching for the solution, it is creating it, pulling it from the field of infinite possibility by the sheer gravitational force of concentrated intention. This is the cosmic law at the center of everything Hill taught about the mind. Concentrated thought is creative force, not metaphorically creative, actually creative, actually generative of new connections, new perceptions, new ideas, new pathways through problems that the scattered mind walks past every single day, because it is moving too fast and in too many directions to notice what the focused mind sees immediately. The insight you have been waiting for is not hiding. It is waiting for you to be still enough and focused enough to receive it. The solution to the problem that has been blocking your progress is not absent. It is inaccessible to the frequency at which your distracted mind is currently operating. The opportunity that would change everything is not unavailable to you. It is invisible to the eyes of someone who has trained themselves to process the surface of 1,000 things rather than the depth of one. Focus does not just help you work better. Focus changes what you are able to perceive. It literally expands the bandwidth of your conscious awareness to include information and connection and possibility that the distracted mind filters out as irrelevant because it has never been trained to recognize the subtle signal beneath the obvious noise. Hill called this the sixth sense, the heightened perceptual capacity that develops in the mind that has been disciplined into stillness and concentration. The ability to receive what he called infinite intelligence, the creative field that surrounds and permeates all consciousness, directly and clearly, rather than through the static of a mind perpetually overwhelmed by self-generated noise. Every master he studied had it. Every one of them described, in their own language, the experience of ideas arriving fully formed, of solutions presenting themselves with the clarity of things being remembered rather than discovered, of a quality of mental reception that felt less like thinking and more like tuning. And every one of them, without exception, attributed it to the same practice: the daily, disciplined, almost religious commitment to concentrated thought, to giving the mind a single point of focus and holding it there past the point of discomfort, past the point where the distracted mind would have already surrendered to something easier, into the deep water where the extraordinary lives, because the extraordinary does not live on the surface. It never has. Every breakthrough in human history, every invention and every insight and every work of enduring beauty that has ever emerged from the human mind came from someone who was willing to go deeper than the culture around them was comfortable going, deeper than was socially normal, deeper than was practically comfortable, into the place where the noise of the world fades and the signal of something larger and more intelligent than the conscious mind begins to speak with the quiet authority of truth that has been waiting for a receiver clear enough to hear it. That receiver is a focused mind. And you have one, buried under years of fragmentation and the accumulated habit of distraction. It is there. The capacity for that depth is in you. It was in you the last time you were so absorbed in something that hours passed without you noticing. The last time a problem consumed you so completely that the rest of the world became irrelevant background noise. The last time you created something and felt, in the aftermath, the particular exhaustion that only comes from having been truly, completely, fully present in the act of making something real. You know that state, you have lived in it before, and you have been living further and further from it with every passing year as the infrastructure of distraction has become more sophisticated, more pervasive, more perfectly calibrated to the specific vulnerabilities of your particular neurology. But it is not gone. It is not permanently damaged. The brain is not a fixed instrument. It is plastic, adaptive, responsive to the demands placed upon it with a flexibility that neuroscience has only recently begun to fully document, but that Hill understood intuitively decades before the science arrived to confirm it. The brain you train is the brain you have. Train it in distraction and it becomes a distraction machine. A highly efficient processor of the trivial, a sophisticated avoider of the deep, a masterful generator of the feeling of busyness in the complete absence of meaningful output. Train it in focus, and it becomes something else entirely. It becomes the instrument of creation it was designed to be, the lens that concentrates the sunlight of your mental energy into the specific, directed, sustainable fire of a mind that knows what it is building and refuses to be pulled from the building of it by anything that does not serve the construction. That training is what Part 3 will demand of you. Not passive understanding, active reprogramming, the specific practices, the daily disciplines, the ruthless protocols that will begin to rebuild the focused mind from the inside out. One recovered hour at a time, one defended block of concentrated attention at a time, one deliberate refusal of distraction at a time, until the scattered mind that arrived at this moment has been replaced by something Hill would have recognized in every master he ever studied: a mind on fire, burning in one direction, unstoppable. The understanding is complete. Now comes the part that costs something, because everything Hill taught about the transformation of the mind was ultimately pointing here. Not to the philosophy, to the practice, not to the understanding of why focus matters, to the daily, unglamorous, deeply uncomfortable work of rebuilding a mind that has been fragmented by years of distraction into an instrument of concentrated, creative, unstoppable power. And the first thing you must understand about this work is that it will feel wrong before it feels right. It will feel like deprivation before it feels like liberation. It will feel like you are removing something essential from your life when what you are actually doing is removing the thing that has been preventing the essential from emerging. The distraction is not filling a void. The distraction is creating one. Every hour surrendered to the scroll, to the notification, to the reflexive reach for stimulation at the first sign of mental discomfort is an hour that should have been spent in the deep, generative, subconscious activating work of concentrated creation. And the void you feel when you put the phone down and sit with the discomfort of an unoccupied mind is not emptiness. It is withdrawal. Your brain has been conditioned to expect a certain level of dopaminergic stimulation as its baseline normal. And when that stimulation is removed, even temporarily, even by choice, the brain signals distress. It sends the feeling of restlessness, of boredom, of a vague, sourceless anxiety that whispers there is something you should be checking, something you might be missing, something happening somewhere that requires your attention right now. That whisper is not truth. That whisper is addiction, speaking in the language of urgency. And you must learn to sit with it, not fight it, not suppress it. Sit with it, observe it. Let it rise and peak and subside without acting on it. Because every time you sit with that discomfort, instead of relieving it with distraction, you are doing something of enormous neurological consequence. You are weakening the distraction pathway and strengthening the focus pathway. You are training your brain that discomfort is survivable, that the absence of stimulation is not an emergency, that the quiet is not something to be filled, but something to be inhabited. And in that inhabited quiet, something extraordinary begins to happen. The subconscious, finally given space to operate without the constant interference of surface noise, begins to surface. Ideas begin to arrive. Connections begin to form. Solutions begin to present themselves with the quiet confidence of things that were always there, waiting patiently behind the noise for the noise to stop. This is the first practice. Hill called it the period of meditation, not in the religious sense, though if that is your tradition, it belongs there too, in the practical, neurological sense of a daily, non-negotiable, protected period of silence in which the conscious mind is deliberately stilled and the subconscious is given full creative authority. 20 minutes minimum, every single day. Before the phone is touched, before the inbox is opened, before the world's frequency gets its first instruction into you. 20 minutes of complete silence in which you hold your definite chief aim in the center of your attention and allow your subconscious to work on it without interruption. Not forcing, not straining, holding. The way you hold a flame near something you want to ignite, with patience, with steadiness, with the absolute refusal to be pulled away before the catching happens. Hill documented what this practice produced in the lives of the masters he studied. Carnegie did it every morning before his household stirred. Edison had a specific chair in a specific room that was used for nothing but this practice. Hill himself attributed his most important insights not to his research, but to these periods of deliberate, focused mental stillness in which the answers to questions he had been consciously working on arrived fully formed from a source that felt deeper than his own conscious intelligence. This is not mysticism. This is the documented, repeatable, scientifically consistent result of giving the subconscious mind the silence and the space it requires to do what it does when the conscious mind finally gets out of its way. The second practice is what Hill called the definite time block. And this is where the ruthlessness he demanded becomes practical and specific. You will choose one block of time every single day, minimum 90 minutes, maximum 4 hours to begin, during which you will work on your definite chief aim and nothing else, not approximately nothing else, nothing else. The phone will not be in the room, not face down on the desk, not on silent in your pocket, not one room away where you can hear it vibrate, not in the room, because the mere presence of a smartphone within reach, even when it is silent, even when you have no intention of checking it, has been proven to reduce cognitive capacity by a measurable degree, simply because part of your brain is always monitoring it for stimulation. The phone in the room is a tax on your focus, even when you are not using it. Remove the tax entirely. The notifications will be off, not silenced, off. Because a silenced notification still occupies a portion of your attention with the awareness that it exists and will eventually need to be addressed. An absent notification occupies nothing. The door will be closed if you have one to close. The environment will be as deliberately constructed for concentration as the distraction industry has deliberately constructed its products for fragmentation. You are creating a sacred space, not metaphorically sacred, actually sacred in the original sense of the word, which means set apart, removed from the ordinary, designated for a purpose higher than the mundane. This is the space where the focused mind goes to work, and the work done in this space will be of a quality, a depth, and a creative power that your distracted mind has never been capable of producing. Not because you are more talented in this space, because you are more present in it. And presence is the multiplier. Presence is what turns competent work into extraordinary work. Presence is what gives your subconscious the signal that this matters enough to bring everything it has. The third practice is the ruthless audit. And this is the one that will require the most courage, because it requires you to look honestly at the specific distractions that have the strongest hold on your particular neurology and make a decision about them that goes beyond management. Not reduce your social media time. Question whether the platforms that are engineered to fragment your attention deserve any place at all in the life of someone who has decided to build something extraordinary. Not limit your news consumption. Question whether the perpetual, algorithmically curated stream of crisis and outrage and controversy that constitutes modern news consumption is compatible with the mental frequency of a person who has committed to concentrated creation. Not be more mindful about your phone use. Question whether the default relationship you have with your phone, which is one of complete unconditional, 24-hour availability to whatever it chooses to send you, is a relationship that serves your highest purpose or one that systematically destroys the conditions required for it. Hill was not gentle about this. He said that the man who cannot control his own attention cannot control his own destiny. Cannot. Not probably won't. Cannot. Because destiny is built in the focused hours, in the deep work, in the concentrated, subconscious, activating, creatively generative blocks of time that produce the insights and the output and the accumulated momentum of a mind working at full power toward a definite purpose. And those hours are either defended or they are surrendered. There is no middle ground. Every hour you fail to defend is an hour that will be claimed by something that has no interest in your destiny and will spend it on your behalf with zero return. The fourth practice is what Hill called the mastermind of accountability. The deliberate cultivation of at least one relationship in your life whose explicit purpose is to hold the standard. Not a friend who will sympathize when you fall short. A partner who will refuse to let falling short become your new normal. Someone who knows your definite chief aim. Someone who knows the specific practices you have committed to. Someone who will ask you, with the regularity and the specificity of a coach, and not the gentle disappointment of a sympathizer, whether you did the work, whether you protected the block, whether you sat in the silence, whether you made the ruthless choices that the extraordinary life requires. This relationship is not comfortable. It is not designed to be. It is designed to be the external mirror of the internal standard you have set. Because the internal standard, in the early stages of reprogramming, is fragile. It has not yet been reinforced by enough repeated experience of its own power to stand alone against the full weight of a culture that is continuously broadcasting the message that distraction is normal and depth is optional. The external accountability is the scaffolding that holds the internal standard upright while it is still finding its strength. Use it without shame. Hill used it. Every master he studied used it. The mastermind principle was not a suggestion for those who needed extra help. It was the structural support that allowed extraordinary minds to build at a scale they could not have achieved in isolation. You are not in isolation now. You are in the company of every human being who has ever looked at the fragmented life and decided that it was not worthy of what they carried. Every person who has ever sat in the discomfort of the quiet and waited for the subconscious to speak, instead of reaching for the stimulation that would silence it. Every builder, every creator, every architect of the extraordinary who understood at some cellular level that the life they were meant to live was not going to be found on the surface of 1,000 things, but in the depth of one, the depth of their purpose, the depth of their focus, the depth of their commitment to doing the work that only the focused mind can do, for as long as it takes, with as much discipline as it requires, until the results make the argument that the distracted mind could never make with words alone. You have that depth. It is in you right now, waiting for you to stop scattering it and start concentrating it. Waiting for you to make the ruthless choice, not once but every single day, to be someone whose attention is not for sale, whose focus is not available to the highest bidder of stimulation, whose mind belongs, first and completely and non-negotiably, to the purpose they have declared as their destiny. Make that choice now. Feel what it feels like to make it completely. And then carry that feeling into the final part of this, where the transformation is sealed, where the identity is confirmed, where the focused mind receives the sacred language it will use to defend its power every single day against everything that tries to take it. You have arrived at the place where everything either takes root or dissolves, not because of what you have heard, because of what you choose to do with it in the next 24 hours. Because transformation is not confirmed in the moment of understanding. It is confirmed in the first morning after, when the alarm sounds and the hand reaches automatically for the phone with the muscle memory of 1,000 mornings of the same surrender. That moment, that exact ordinary, unremarkable moment is where the extraordinary life is either chosen or postponed again. And it will be postponed again with the best intentions and the most genuine desire for change, unless something has shifted at a level deeper than motivation. Motivation is weather. It changes. It responds to circumstances. It is high after the right conversation and low after the wrong night's sleep, and completely absent on the Tuesday morning in February when nothing feels urgent and everything feels grey, and the phone is right there and the work is hard and the results are not yet visible enough to justify the discipline required to produce them. Motivation will not save you on that Tuesday morning. Identity will. The moment you stop being someone who is trying to be more focused and become someone who is focused, the Tuesday morning loses its power over you. Because focused people do not negotiate with distraction on Tuesday mornings. They do not weigh the cost and benefit of protecting the work block. They simply protect it. The way you simply eat and simply breathe and simply do the things that are so thoroughly woven into who you are that the question of whether to do them does not arise. That is the level of identity this transformation must reach to be permanent. And permanence requires the language of identity repeated with enough consistency and enough emotional charge that the subconscious accepts it as the operating truth of who you are. This is the purpose of the mantra. not inspiration, not motivation. Reprogramming. The daily, deliberate, emotionally embodied declaration of the identity you have chosen, spoken into the architecture of your subconscious with the authority of someone who has already decided and is simply confirming the decision every morning before the world has a chance to challenge it. Speak this now, with your full voice, with your spine straight and your breath deep and the complete authority of someone who has just drawn a line between who they were and who they are becoming. My attention is sacred, and I guard it with absolute discipline. I am ruthless with distraction because I am faithful to my purpose. I do not scatter my power. I concentrate it. I release the fragmented life, and I claim the focused, extraordinary, fully expressed existence I was built to live. Say it again, not as aspiration, as declaration, as the irrevocable statement of a new identity that has just taken permanent occupancy in the deepest room of your subconscious. Feel the difference between the person who said those words and the person who arrived at the beginning of this. That difference is not small. That difference is the distance between the life you have been living and the life you were designed for. And it was crossed not by a change in circumstances, but by a change in frequency. A change in the dominant vibration of your inner world from the scattered, stimulation-seeking, distraction-dependent frequency of someone who has been hijacked by a culture that profits from their fragmentation to the concentrated, purpose-driven, subconsciously activated frequency of someone who has reclaimed their most sacred resource, their attention, their focus, their creative power. The force that Hill spent his entire life documenting as the single most consequential variable in the difference between the ordinary life and the extraordinary one. Now let me tell you what happens next, not eventually. In the days and weeks immediately following the decision you have made today, the first thing you will notice is resistance. Not from outside, from inside. Your brain, habituated to a certain level of stimulation, will push back against the new protocol with the full force of years of entrenched neural patterning. It will manufacture urgency where none exists. It will generate the feeling that checking the phone is not optional, that the inbox cannot wait, that the notification you are ignoring might be the one that matters. This is not truth. This is the addiction defending its territory. And the way through it is not willpower. Willpower is a depleting resource. It runs out. It is exhausted by the end of the day when the decisions have accumulated and the resistance has been sustained, and the easiest thing in the world is to surrender to the stimulation that promises relief. The way through is not willpower. It is environment design, the ruthless, deliberate, preemptive structuring of your physical and digital environment to make the right behavior effortless and the wrong behavior inconvenient. The phone is not in the bedroom when you sleep, because the bedroom is where your subconscious does its most important work, and it does not need the phone's electromagnetic interference, and it does not need the last input before sleep to be a notification, and it does not need the first impulse of the waking mind to be a reach for the device rather than a reach for the practice. The work block is scheduled in the calendar with the same non-negotiable status as a meeting with the most important person in your life, because it is. The most important work you will ever do for the most important person in your life, which is the future version of yourself that is either being built or abandoned in these hours, deserves at least the scheduling respect you give to an appointment you would never cancel. The apps that are engineered to fragment your attention are not on the home screen, not because you are banning yourself from them, because friction is intervention. Every extra step between you and the distraction is a moment in which your conscious intention has the opportunity to reassert itself over your automatic behavior. And in that moment, the identity you have declared today has the chance to speak, to remind you who you have decided to be, To make the choice that the habituated mind would make automatically feel like the betrayal it actually is. These are not small adjustments. They are architectural changes to the environment in which your mind operates. And architecture shapes behavior with a consistency and a reliability that intention alone can never match. Hill understood this. He structured his entire life around the work, not around the work when he felt like it. Around the work as the fixed point and everything else as the variable organized in service of it. That inversion is the secret. Most people make their life the fixed point and their work the variable that fits into whatever space is left after everything else has been accommodated. And the work that fits into whatever space is left is not the work that changes anything. It is the work that maintains the status quo with the exhausted energy of someone who gave everything else their best hours and arrived at their purpose with what remained. Your purpose deserves your best hours. Your definite chief aim deserves the freshest, sharpest, most fully present version of your mind. Not the version that has already processed 100 notifications and made 100 small decisions and navigated 100 interruptions. The version that woke up from sleep with the subconscious still close to the surface. The version that has not yet been colonized by the day's demands. The version that is most permeable to the deep, creative, subconsciously amplified work that produces the output only the focused mind can produce. Give that version to the work every single morning, before anything else, before the world knows you are awake, in the sacred hours before the noise begins. That is where your legacy is built, in the quiet, in the concentrated, in the disciplined hours that look like nothing from the outside and are everything from the inside. Napoleon Hill watched 500 extraordinary lives and distilled their secret into principles that have been proven across generations and cultures and every conceivable variation of human circumstance. And at the center of all of it, beneath every principle and every practice and every insight he spent 20 years gathering, there was always the same immovable truth. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your attention, not the quantity of your effort, not the breadth of your knowledge, not the strength of your desire, the quality of your attention, where it goes, how long it stays, how deeply it penetrates, how completely it is given to the thing that matters most. That is the variable, that is the lever. That is the single most powerful thing you can change about your life starting today. Not your circumstances, not your resources, not your network or your strategy or your timing, your attention. Reclaim it, protect it, train it with the same ruthless, disciplined, daily commitment that Hill's masters applied to every dimension of their extraordinary lives. Because a focused mind is not a productivity tool. It is a force of nature. It is the human mind operating at the frequency it was designed for, creating, connecting, perceiving, building with the full power of a 3-pound universe that contains, when properly concentrated, more creative force than any circumstance can withstand, and more generative capacity than any obstacle can contain. You were given that mind. You were given it not to spend on the trivial and the urgent and the algorithmically optimized for your most vulnerable neurological impulses. You were given it to build something real, something lasting, something that will exist in the world after you are gone, as the evidence that a human being was here, fully present, fully focused, fully committed to the expression of everything they were given. That something is waiting for the hours you have been giving away. Reclaim the hours, reclaim the mind, reclaim the life that is built in the deep water where the distracted never go and the focused always find exactly what they came for. The war inside you has a winner now. You chose it today. Honor that choice tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the noise, before the world has a chance to offer you 1,000 reasons why the distraction was justified and the work could wait. It cannot wait. You cannot wait. The focused, extraordinary, fully expressed life that Hill spent his entire existence proving was available to every human being willing to pay its price. That life is not waiting for better circumstances. It is waiting for better attention. Yours. Starting now.